I hate to admit it now, but I'm glad that God revealed this to me, and I want to share it with you guys here. But if I was to look at myself, I would categorize myself as a womanizer. Sleeping with women does not make you a man. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys and opening up about my experience and the things that I have been struggling with as a man, and some revelations and reflections that I have come across that could potentially help other men in the process. My name is DeAndre Saxon. I am your brother. And on this YouTube channel, I teach men how to become better versions of themselves. And I'm on a journey and a mission on seeking out what it really means to be a high value man, so we could teach men how to become the best versions of themselves when it comes to their women, their wealth, their friend groups, their God, and how they feel about themselves. And so in today's topic, I want to get straight down to it. And honestly, I want to be as open and as vulnerable as possible on this channel. I think that's one of the things that God gifted me. I don't try to pretend to be somebody I'm not, or try to do anything, but I just want to share my experience and my story. And so today I want to talk about sleeping with women and how a lot of men in today's society have believed that sleeping with women or multiple women or having a high body count or having a rotation is what makes you a man. And last night I had a big reflection, right? God really spoke to me, and it really hit me in the ego as a man. Because as a man, one of the most powerful things that we can use is our masculine ego. And when it gets hit, when God speaks to it, it's gonna hurt like as if he was stepping on a wound. Because sometimes we're wounded, and I want to talk about first step here is wounded masculine energy. You see, when a young boy or a young man has wounded masculine energy, what he tends to do is he tends to put a Band-Aid on it. And as a teenager, especially in the culture in which you were coming up, I'm talking about your college years, maybe in high school if you played a sport, the other boys that you were around typically influence what it meant to be a man. But if you really got to think about it, a lot of the young boys that you were hanging around with during your college age and during your high school days were just young men trying to figure it out on their own, coming in with their own insecurities, coming in with their own lacks and limitations and male woundedness. And as I think about this, and I'm a guy that I hate to admit it now, but I'm glad that God revealed this to me, and I want to share it with you guys here. But if I was to look at myself, I would categorize myself as a womanizer. I've been a guy that has put sex and women and dating as one of the highest priorities in my life. And I truly believe that it's really affected me negatively when it's come to my business, to my clarity, to my own personal relationship, and my relationship with women. And I may be the first guy to admit it, but once you start actually diving deep into what this actually is, this wounded masculine energy, I think it's a time for young men to actually start healing. So when we talk about wounded masculine energy, what does that actually mean? And culture makes us believe that the more women that we sleep with, the more of a man we are. I can think back to the time when I was in college and I was in a fraternity, and the guys that I were with, right? Because think about it, you're a freshman and you're joining a fraternity, right? Which would be like a brotherhood or something like that. So you tend to look up to the male figures around you. Yes, you might have YouTube or something like that, but typically the young men or men that are in your life, you tend to look up to them. And I remember being in college, and we would pride ourselves on how many women we could sleep with. We would pride ourselves with the number. We would throw the number around. And me being an impressionable young 18, 17-year-old boy trying to get inside of a fraternity, as I was reflecting on creating this video, I remember those times when I was like, wow. I remember one of the guys told me he had slept with 50 girls. And at the time, I maybe only had like 8, women in my whole life, or not even 8, probably like close to 6 to 7. And I remember looking at him thinking, wow, I want to do that. I want to have a lot of girls. I want to become popular. I want to become a man that's attractive. And I think that's followed me on to the age that I'm at now, 26, where I would consider, like I said, myself a womanizer, in the sense that I never treat women bad. Like, I never disrespect women. But what I would do was I would keep a rotation of girls. I would always keep a pipeline of girls. I would always have this need or desire for sex. And as I transition into the next phase of wounded masculinity, what happens is, in today's culture, we're normalizing the hookup and rotation culture as men. We are normalizing that it's okay to hook up with random girls. And this, I think, goes against society, because when you open up Instagram, and even then, if I was to be honest and look at my old content, even from last week, I talked about this idea of having a rotation, having an abundance mindset. But really, it's coming from a place of hurt and fear, that, a fear of falling in love, fear of getting into a relationship, and maybe her not being as reciprocal, right? But whatever it is, it comes from a sense of fear of love, maybe fear of not being man enough. And in today's society, it's normalized, or at least it's talked about really heavily, about the red pill, right? Don't simp. And what's the opposite of a simp? Because what society says a simp is a man that's overly emotional, that's overly invested into a woman, which causes the woman to back out. And that can be done through multiple different activities. But then you go to the other side, which is the red pill, which is all about, keeping women in a rotation, and like this whole mental manipulation. And like I said, it's not to hurt women, but it's very psychological. And what it really comes down to is a sense of wounded masculinity, and that you keep a rotation of girls, or you sleep with more girls in order to bring up the man's self-esteem. And so what happens is, as a man, is we place validation on the outside world. You see, when a young man has wounded masculinity, he seeks validation. So it's easy for the red pill community, or for men, to see a woman seeking validation. And it's typically done through social media, right? A woman that's maybe more promiscuous on Instagram, posting more nudity, really out there with their posts. We know it's a thirst trap as guys most of the time, that she's seeking validation. But guys, don't think as a man you're not doing the same. It might be not as apparent as you posting, a naked picture on your Instagram, but as men, we also seek validation. And especially if we didn't have a male figure in our life, which a lot of young men don't. I didn't have my father in my life. I had my grandfather, but there's something different between having your father in your life, or having that male leader, especially a man that's of character, that if you don't have that, you start to seek that validation of what it means to become a man from other outside people, typically in your environment. So if you're growing up as a man, and let's just say you're fatherless, or you don't have that male figure, you're going to look to the seniors at your school. You're going to look at the jocks, the popular guys, and their beliefs about what it's like to be a man. You start to impress that upon yourself as a young teenager, as a young man coming up, because you think that is what it means to be masculine, that to have a rotation or a harem of women is what makes you a man, that earning a lot of money and having a nice car and a nice apartment and being flashy is masculine, or being very, what do you call it, blue check mark and validated and all this kind of outside success and who that makes you a man. But as men, we seek the same type of validation. The question is, where are you looking at it? Are you looking at it from sex or from women? Are you looking at it from making money? Are you looking at it from the things that you have? You see, the masculine wounded energy will seek for validation from some place. So this is not to judge one guy if he chooses to have sex with a lot of women, or the guy that's very money centric, or the guy that's all about attention and who he knows, right? It's not about that, but it's understanding the wounded masculine energy that's behind it. For me, it was women. And as I go down in here, sleeping with women is not the answer. That sometimes as men, we seek a woman to fix the emptiness in our heart when it comes to that validation. You see, if we don't feel that strong of a man, if we have a wound in our masculinity, we put a Band-Aid on it. And for a guy that's a womanizer, a guy that likes to sleep with a lot of women, what happens is he feels this sense of emptiness, that at some moments of the day, he doesn't feel like he's that masculine. And it's this part of you that's so inbred into your spirit, into who you are, that if it's not being fed, you must fill it with something that's less suitable to your growth. Think about you being hungry. You can fill it with nasty food like a McDonald's burger, or you can fill it with healthy food. You see, as a man, your masculinity is hungry. But where you seek to get the nourishment, it has a tall tale sign of where you put your validation. So, like I said, I was putting it in women, that if I would have more women, that if I would, sleep with one girl a week, or or have a rotation, or all this different stuff, that it would make me more of a man. Or for some of us, it's business and the scorecard and how much money we make. And it's how much money we have in our bank account and our monthly income that makes us a man. But if we don't have that monthly income, if we don't have that savings account, if we don't have the sales record, if we don't have that woman, we don't feel like a man. And it hits us at a deeper layer because of that wounded energy. And as long as, if you're a man and you put your validation or your masculine validation in having sex with the women, it will never be fulfilled. This is something that I'm glad God put me through at 26 years old, that I'm now coming to the revelation of this, I guess you can say, that I can help other young men not go through this and heal themselves prior to getting to a point where they are 26, 27, 30, 35 years old and still having these same problems. Because if you put your sense of validation in sex, in women, or money, or whatever, let's just talk about women here, it's never going to be filled. And that was the problem that I was having, is you can continue to have sex with as many women as you want, like whether it's 1 a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, rotation, whatever floats your boat. But what happens is, sometimes as a man, you feel like you want to conquer that woman. See, that's your wound of your masculine energy wanting to express itself. But instead of expressing itself in a healthy version, it's going to express itself in an unhealthy version, in a lower quality, lower vibration level, which is the lowest level, which is lust. Lust is one of the lowest vibrations that's out there. It's flesh seeking flesh overly indulging in flesh. And that's one of the vibrations that literally is brings us down to the point where, after you're done having sex with that woman, does it really make you feel stronger as a man? Maybe for a minute, maybe while she's laying next to you, maybe for a couple hours after the thought of the lustful ideas and idolatry that was flowing through you goes away. But then guess what? The next day comes and you're still feeling the same way. And then here you are in the next cycle, either hitting up that girl or hitting up the next girl in your rotation, or sliding in another DM, trying to build your rotation, trying to get that validation, trying to get that 60 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 hours of feeling like a man. But really, it's never going to come from another woman. It's not going to come from the sex. When you're having sex with that woman, yes, it feels good for the moment. You feel like the masculine energy is there, right? You're putting a Band-Aid on the wound. But as soon as she leaves, or you fall or succumbing to pornography or anything that's lustful like that, that's really getting to the base of your, as a man's wounded masculine energy, it's never enough. You see, that emptiness cannot be filled by a woman's warmth. It cannot be filled by a woman's sex. It cannot be filled by an ejaculation, masturbation, pornography. That emptiness that we feel sometimes as a man when we have wounded masculine energy, it cannot be filled by a woman. We always, if we continue to put our validation as a man, that, hey, I am a man when I sleep with women, if we continue to put that on in this cycle, what will begin to happen is you will continue to feel that emptiness, despite how many women you sleep with, despite how many rotation girls that you have. This is a video to bring awareness to men that believe in today's culture that it's normal to womanize, or it's normal to sleep with multiple different women, that it's okay to disrespect our fellow sisters and see them as objective bodies rather than the people that they truly are.